Hi guys, it's Becky, and I just got my October shipment from Beads to Live By for their curated collections. And the curated collections are a subscription. It's actually two subscriptions that I subscribe to. One is for seed beads, and the other is for two-hole beads. And the reason I love this so much is because Cassandra curates, hence the name, a collection of two-hole beads and seed beads that just go together. So I know ahead of time that these are going to go all together. So we're going to unbox them. We're going to take a look at the different seed beads. And then I have a project in mind that I'm going to pick two of these seed beads and probably these check daggers, which are gorgeous. Look at these. And I'm going to make a project, and we'll get started with that on this video. And yeah, so let's pull these out. You usually get 8 baggies, pretty generously sized baggies of 11 seed beads. And they usually follow kind of a theme. Sometimes you get bright colors. Sometimes you get like these really, it's like foresty vibe kind of colors that we've got going on here in this October shipment. So let's pull all of these out and start taking a look at them. Now the shaped beads that you have for the for the two-hole beads, they're generally going to be the same. You can expect that, but the colors are going to be different. So let's start with the two-hole beads. We've got some pyramid or stud beads, and I don't have a list that says what the colors are, but it looks like we've got kind of a matte, like vitriol kind of color on this with the gray, which is going to look really great. And you see it's got 2 holes that go parallel to one of the sides on each of these, and they've got this spiky point at the other. I do have several tutorials using these, so I can link those below if you'd like. The next are silky beads, which I don't think get enough love in the bead tube environment. The hole on this, it's a square bead, about the same shape and size as a tila, but the hole runs up like that so that it sits in a diamond shape when you're using it. And I also have some tutorials for this. And then you've got your square tila beads, and there are tutorials all over the place for these. I have used it in some of my other projects, but it is a square bead that is the same on both sides, and its holes, both of them, run parallel to the sides instead of against the grain like the silkies. And it looks like, sorry, I wasn't talking about the finish on this. Look at this like metallic-y finish on this. It is beautiful. It's gorgeous. And it's going to look great in some projects. This one has this like pearlescent sort of green finish, like a luster. Almost like a pastel-y green. It's very verdant, this color. And then we've got some two-hole lentils, and they basically look like a button. The holes are equidistant from one side to the other. And this one looks like it is black with some gold and silver splatter on it. So this is a fun color to add to some things. And then we've got our daggers, and these are two-hole daggers. So they've got a top hole up here and then a second hole further down the bottom. And I'm going to use these today in my project that I'm going to be making. I love daggers. I like using them along the edges of like a bezel for a pendant because you get like this great sunbursty kind of energy from it. That's not what I'm going to use them today for. I am actually going to be using them just in a necklace with some dangly drops. But let's pull out our seed beads, because once we know what kind of seed beads we have, we can choose which ones we want to use with this. So I'm going to set this aside over here, and let's pull out our seed beads. And I'm just going to start opening, and we're going to take a look at them. I cleared off my little ladybug tray so you can get a close-up look at some of these seed beads. And this one, it looks like it's a nice, like, matte olive green color. Unlined. It's a really nice shape. I'll put them away in their baggie in a little bit. Next one is a luster finish, but kind of a green color with like a rainbow AB finish on them. It's kind of got a metallic look to it. I love it when we get these ones with the different colors of the finishes, because it gives you so much dimension in the different types of beads that you're using and working with. I'll be cleaning this up later. Don't worry. All right. And the third one, it looks like there's a red or orange lining on the inside of this, and a olive green or chartreuse colored glass for the outside of it, but that gives it this really cool, like, this is definitely like kind of pumpkin-y, but also fall color. It's not a bead that I would have gone looking for, but it is so interesting, and I think it's going to be really fun to work with in some of the projects that are out there. Like, that's another great thing about the subscription, is like, I know lots of folks like to have like control over what they're buying and all that, but sometimes I get overwhelmed and I just buy like regular colors, and I don't think about how well this super interesting orange lined green bead is going to look with this kind of light brown khaki colored bead, or how well it'll go with this olive colored matte bead. You know, like, because Cassandra puts them together and you're pretty much guaranteed to have like a cohesive color palette. All right, so this one is more matte beads. I love that we get different finishes too. And these ones are kind of a really warm light brown. Kind of a khaki brown. They kind of go with the olive green. And then we've got some other warm colors. This is kind of a burgundy red. It has some pink undertones, but it also has a lot of warmth to it. And these are more of the matte finish beads. Oh. Looks like there's one of them that's a little wonky. I'm just going to pull that guy out so I don't accidentally use them. For the most part, the beads are fine. Like, having one wonky bead and like a whole bag of these is it's pretty normal. I think these actually are almost the same color as my ladybug. Almost. These are pretty. It's not quite cranberry. It's more like maybe a Bordeaux. I'm just making up names of colors right now. All right, and this is a really dark green. Like, we've got some navy green, or some, not navy green, some army green kind of colors. But This one has luster finish. And again, you've got a lot of depth in the different colors that we have on this. I love beads that aren't just one color. It's so much fun to play with. And then we've got some more green beads, and these have some greens and blue hues. It's got kind of an AB finish on it, but it's also matte. And this is gorgeous. I love these because it's not like the dark, bright, like teal greens, like peacock colors. It's more of a subtle green with this. They're going everywhere. That's fine. That is just fine. I'll tell you why. I got a little bead scoop over here that I can scooch those up with. All right, now we've got one more baggie to open. And while I've been doing this, I've been kind of thinking about which of these are going to go best with the dagger beads, since I'm going to be doing a necklace with them. And I think I love these with the daggers, but I want something else that's kind of contrasty. So let's see if we're going to have these silver lined, or are they gold lined? Let's take a look. But they are a nice matte gray glass. Or no, it's not matte. No. Is it? Let's look a little closer. Got a glassy gray on the outside, and it might be gold lined on the inside. But that gives you a little more depth to this color. Like, it feels like silver, and then you look there on the inside and it's more yellowy. So I think what I want to do with this for my necklace is this blues and greens AB finish with these. And I'm going to grab these red, not really red, but like kind of burgundy color beads as a contrast to go with this. And this is what I'm going to make my necklace with. So before I start making my necklace, and I'm going to move these out of the way so that I can concentrate just on that, I just want to do one final shot of both of the subscriptions, the seed bead subscription and the 2-hole bead subscription together, so you can see how cohesive this is. But also I wanted to mention that there are add-on bundles that you can get with check glass, either pressed glass or fire polish check glass bundles that are also coordinated to go with these. I love that they're add-ons because if it's not in my budget that month, I can just skip it. Or if it's something that I desperately want to have because they're just really great check glass shapes or colors, I can go ahead and purchase it before Cassandra ships these, and if you put, there's a little code you can put in there, and she'll ship them together with your things. So because it's a small business, Cassandra handles a lot of this on her own, and it's a really it's really nice to have that special personal touch from her when we do this. So let me get these out of the way, and then we will get started making this necklace with our daggers and these 2 colors of seed beads. Okay, so for this, I've got my 2-hole daggers off of their strand, and you can see both holes when I hold it up like this. I've got some of these green and blue AB finish matte seed beads. I've got some of these kind of reddish burgundy color matte seed beads. And I've got some wildfire. This is what was on my desk. You can use any beading thread that will fit through an 11-0 seed bead at least 3 times. So I'm just going to use this since it's right here, and I'm going to pull off a wingspan of it. I can add more thread later if I need it. And if you do like a full length necklace, you probably will need it. And my wide eye beading needles are getting a little bit janky, so I'm going to pull out a new one. And I think, because they sometimes they get bent after you've used them for a while, which is totally normal. So I've got myself a new wide eye beading needle to use with this. And we're just going to get this started. Alright, so basically my idea for this is I'm going to have some beads along the sides of the dagger, and then I'm going to have a little right angle weave unit in between them, but it's going to be like an 8 bead right angle weave unit, and we're going to pop some of those beads out so it looks like a little diamond. So we have like a diamonds and daggers kind of a necklace. And I'll show you and I'll walk you through this when I get there. So let's grab our beading thread on our needle. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and go through the bottom. If you're holding it so that the dagger is pointing down, then this is the top hole and this is the bottom hole. The top hole is near the end, the bottom hole is kind of in the middle of the dagger, and I'm just going to go through that middle hole, or that second hole, the bottom hole, and I'm going to leave myself a good like 10 inches or so of thread because I'm going to be doing some other things with that thread later at the end of this in order to finish this off. But until then, I'm going to just grasp it with my fingers while I add my other beads. So I think what I want is I want the red to be my diamonds, and I want my kind of blue ones to be the ones that go better and blend in with my daggers. So I'm going to pick up one of my, we're going to call this our A bead, one B bead, and one A bead. And if you're doing this all in one color of bead, you would just pick up 3 beads. And I'm going to go from this, I'm coming out of this hole here, and I'm just going to go right into the hole next to it on the top. And it kind of pops out like that. And I want 3 beads on the other side as well, and I want them to match the same. I'm going to pick up one of my A beads, one of my B beads, and one of my A beads. I'm going to go back through this hole, which was the first hole that I went through. And it's at this point that I can probably go ahead and drop that thread and stop holding on to it. Now I'm just going to sort of reinforce this, but also move my thread through this so that it's coming out of this red bead over here on this side. So I'm going to just sew through all 3 of these beads. You can do them one at a time, that's fine. This part, might be able to go through all 3, the beads on either side and that hole, the other side of the dagger bead. All right, I'm going to just pull this taut a little bit, and then I'm going to be coming right out of this red bead here. So now I'm going to make kind of a diamond shape with more of these red beads. Let me grab some paper and pen and draw it out for you first so you can sort of see what we're doing. On here. So I've just come out of the dagger and I have 1, 2, 3 beads on that side and 1, 2, 3 beads on this side. Now I'm going to be coming out of this bead after having gone through there twice. I'm coming out of this bead and I'm going to pick up 7 more of the red beads because my right angle unit is going to use 8, but I already have 1 bead for that unit on there. So I'm going to have 7 more beads and I'll go through all of these to come back on this one. And then I'm going to go through it a second time, but I'm going to skip 2 of the beads, and these are the beads that I'm going to skip. And the reason I'm going to skip them is when I do that and pull it taut, it'll make those beads pop out into a diamond shape, and you're going to see that when I do it. So my second pass will go through this next bead. We're going to skip that one, all 3 of these beads, and then we're going to skip that one, and we'll go through that one again. So now that I've described it and shown you, let me do that with the actual beads. So let's pick up our 7 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure I'm in camera shot. And I'm going to sew through just this red bead again, going in the same direction that I was before. So that was my first pass of my thread through all 8 of these beads. So the second one we're going to sew around, but we're going to skip one of these beads on each side. So if this is the first bead, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then I am going to sew into the second bead, skip the third, sew into the 4th, 5th, and 6th bead, skip the 7th, sew into the 8th, and then back into this first bead again, if that makes sense. So sew into the second bead, skip the third. It doesn't matter which side of the bead your thread ends up on when you do the skipping because you can move it. Then I'm going to sew into the 4th, 5th, and 6th beads. So all 3 of those, that's 2 of them. Here's the 6th bead here. And I'm going to skip this 7th bead and sew into the 8th bead and that first bead again. So I skipped that bead right there. You can see the thread is kind of on the outside of these beads, but you can kind of pop it out if you need to a little bit and tighten that up. See? It makes those beads pop out a little bit into a diamond shape. So that's what's going to be between our little units with our dagger bead on each of these, and this is why I wanted a contrasty color, was so that the diamond would pop out. So now all I need to do is get my thread from this bead to this other bead on the opposite side so I can add another diamond. So I want the thread over here. To do that, I'm going to sew through these 2 beads again, and then that one. I'm going to continue skipping the pokey outy bead, the one that is popping out, making our diamond shape. Let's skip that one again and sew through these two over here on the side. Does that make sense? So now to add my next dagger, I already have this bead here. This is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th bead. Wait, yes, no, 5th bead. The one that's on the opposite side from that one. So what I need now is to pick up another green bead and then the dagger. So 1 green bead and then the dagger, and I want to go through, since this is going up along the top, I want to go through the top hole on this bead, the one that's closest to the end, so that my dagger doesn't end up pointing the other direction when I get this all in place. So now on the other side, I need my 3 beads, which is going to be green, red, green. Or ABA, if you're using different colors. And then I'm going to go through the second hole so that we have that there on that side. All right, so now on this side, I need to add 1 more bead to finish up this 3 beads on the side. So I'm going to pick up 1 more A bead, green bead, and I'm going to sew into this red bead that I was coming out of before. Let's give that a little tug, tighten it up a little bit. And now I'm going to sew through this bead, the dagger, this bead, and come out of this red bead on the other side. You can go through another time if you feel like you want to tighten it up, or if you feel like it needs some more structure. I'm fine without reinforcing this. I think it gives it a little bit of drape if I don't spend a lot of time reinforcing it. But now that I'm coming out of this red bead again, I can make another diamond. So I need 7 beads to make my 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to have my little wonky circle. And I'm going to go through here. And I'm going to sew through and skip those beads that are supposed to be on the other end by sewing through the next bead right after the one I come out of, skipping the bead next to that, sewing through these 3 beads after the one I skip, skipping this bead here, sewing back through the final bead and the first bead that I originally came out of again. And if we need to move the bead out of the way so it pops when we tighten it, we can definitely do that. This one is scooched on that side of it. Pinching it and pulling, that holds the beads where they need to be. And there's my other diamond. So I'm going to have these diamonds in between each of my daggers. Let me add a dagger one more time before I turn this off and finish up my little line of daggers and diamonds. So again, you have to move your thread to the opposite side of this right angle weave unit. So you're ready to add more daggers. For this, just a and then the dagger. And since I'm coming up out of the top of this, if you're coming out of the bottom, pointing in that way, you want to go through the bottom hole. Since I'm coming out of the top, we go through the top of the dagger, like that. And now I add my ABA. So that's on the other side. Go through the second hole. Pick up another green or A bead. Sew through this B bead, this red bead that I originally was coming out of before I added the dagger. Go. Then I'm going to sew right through these top beads till I'm coming out of this red bead right here, and I'm ready to add another diamond. So I'm going to continue this in this pattern, adding my daggers and my diamonds, and I feel like this is a little bit of a Christmassy colorway, which is fantastic. I'm getting real poinsettia vibes off of these diamonds in between these green daggers, and I'm loving it, even though I know it's like Halloween times. I think this is going to be really great for a Christmas color kind of a necklace for me to do. I'm going to keep doing this and add them until I get them to the length that I want. And I will join you back here and we will talk about ways to finish it up. All right, so I have made this as long as I want it for this necklace. For this, I just want to have my beaded part be at the front, and then I'm going to be attaching two different 6.5-inch lengths of chain along either side with a little magnetic clasp and some jump rings. And in order to attach the chain to this, I'm going to want to attach these wire guardians. So to do that, here I am at the end of my thing. I've got my last diamond on this side. Now if you remember, we did not do a diamond at the beginning, so I'll show you how to add that diamond here at the end after we do this one. So I've got it coming out of this side. I'm going to pick up one of my A beads. I'm going to go through one of the legs of the wire guardian. See, they've got these holes through the legs right there that you can go through. So I've got one bead and the leg on my needle. Let's scooch in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And now I'm going to go back down through this other leg of this needle, or of the wire guardian, and make sure that my thread ends up right there in the little groove. Sometimes when you pull your thread tight, it skips the groove and it ends up kind of across the wire guardian instead. So just pinching it to either side helps it end up where you want it to go. So now I'm going to add another of my A beads. I'm going to go back through this one B bead that I was coming out of. And this is just attaching my wire guardian to the work and finishing it up. And I'm just making sure that that isn't getting caught over there. So it's attached, but I want to reinforce it. So I'm going to go back through this bead, back up through the wire guardian, down through the wire guardian, back through this bead one more time. If you do it more than that, sometimes like the wire guardian, like the leg will split and then the threads all pop out and it's just a mess. So just twice should do for that. So that's one more time up, and then I'm going to go back down through here, back down through that bead, Again, just pinching the sides to keep the thread in that channel. Now I'm going to go back around through this this diamond. Just trying to get my needle or my thread a little further away from here before I tie it off. I think where I want to do is go back through this dagger and tie it off over here, so it's pretty far away from here. So I'm going to go back through this lower one. And then up through here to the top. You could go back and reinforce this whole thing if you want to. I don't think we're going to need to. So I'm just going to get to a place where I can find a bare spot of thread, probably here. That's going to be a good place for me to tie off. So I'm going to just slide underneath this strand of thread that's coming between those two beads. And it's going to make a loop out of my current thread. Just going to go through that loop and pull this taut. And try to make sure the loop doesn't catch on my dagger bead. I'm just going to do that one more time. All right, and then I'm just going to go through here so that I'm a little bit further away from the knot when I cut my thread. There's a lot of different threads going through this bead right here. It's nice and tight, so it should hold my thread fairly well after I cut it off. Now, if there's a little bit showing, if there's a bit of an end, okay, it looks like there's not that much of an end, so I don't need to burn that off. And that attaches this end to a wire guardian. Now let me show you how to get your needle on this end of the thread, add another diamond, and do the same thing. This is another reason why I like the wide-eye needles. Come on, buddy. Except sometimes they're a little bit difficult to open if your fingernails aren't working right. Wide-eye needle. You can just pass your thread through. Alright, so where we're going with this, it looks like it's coming out of there, so I'm going to need to go through in a circle till I'm coming out on this end. So through those two beads. It's a little bit stiff. It's better to grab a pliers to pull it through than to try and push it with your thumb, because you will puncture your thumb if you do that. So they're fairly thin, so pushing on the end isn't going to be as effective as grabbing it and pulling it through. Alright, so I'm going to do another diamond here, just to reinforce how I make the diamond. I have my first red needle or red bead already on here, so I'm just going to add 7 more for 8 total. 6, 7. Let's verify that that is. Nope, that is 8. I have to pull one of these off. There we go. So that's 7. Gonna go right through that bead, and I'm gonna skip the next bead, or I'm gonna sew through the next bead, skip that third one, and sew through 4, 5, and 6. There's 4 and 5. 6, then I'm skipping 7, and sewing through 8, and back down into 1 again. And that makes my diamond, because the ends kind of pop up. All right, so now I'm going to get my needle over to the end so I can attach my second wire guardian. And then once the wire guardians are on, it's just going to be opening and closing jump rings to attach the rest of my findings. And I'll show you in a minute an alternate way of doing it if you don't want to use a chain. Because I had my my example when I was just trying to figure out this little bit. And I did that with such a way. So a bead, first leg of the wire guardian. Then we sew back down through the wire guardian. I'm just pinching on either side to help guide that thread into the channel on top of the wire guardian, because it always moves on me. And I'm picking up another A bead, sewing back into this corner bead right there on the end. So yeah, if you don't want to do the chain attached, you could do this pattern and make this be your chain. And I'll show you that in a minute. Now, these beads were from a previous Beads to Live By curated collection, one of the previous months. I think it was actually last month's. Now, this should also give you an idea of what it looks like if you use different colors. So this one's very kind of Christmassy, and this one's more like less Christmassy, maybe. But you've got like blue diamonds and then the kind of purpley pink with that, and then I attached a wire guardian to the end of that. So I still have not finished that here. So I'll show you this little pattern after I finish this one. So stay tuned for that. All right, so I've gone through once. I still need to reinforce this again. Sorry, I stepped away for a minute. I got sidetracked. I do that sometimes. Going all the way through. Right, making sure the thread ends up where I want it. And then we'll just end it the same way. We'll go back through here. We'll tie it off and then sew it through a couple more beads before we cut our thread. But yeah, I started doing these little tutorials when I was doing my unboxings because when I got them, I kept looking around for tutorials for how to use like these 2-hole daggers or silky beads or some of the other ones. Like there's a lot out there for Tila's, the square beads, but not as many for some of the other shapes that are out there. So I thought, you know what, let's make a little video. Let's create some things so people who get one of these can say, aha, I can make this with my subscription. I don't have to buy a bunch of specialty weird shape 2-hole beads in order to be able to use my silkies or my lentils or anything like that. I can just do it with what I have. Right here with this. Move that out of the way. And I know the way I went through in my thread path is a little bit different, but you don't have to follow the same thread path I do. As long as you like switch back and forth a couple of times, and as long as you do like, you don't even have to knot it, but I feel more secure with a knot personally. So now that I've got my focal, just gonna scooch these out of the way and also scooch this back so that you can see what I'm doing. Grab both of my lengths of chain, and I have jump rings attached to my magnetic clasp. So I'm gonna just open and close some jump rings. I am using some chain nose pliers and some bent nose pliers for opening and closing these. I'm going to put the end of my project here on one of my jump rings and then one of my chains on that same jump ring. Close it up. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with a different jump ring. The reason I went for this like silver color on this is because there is like a silver sheen on some of this finish on these daggers. You can see it shining. So the silver color goes really well with those daggers. All right, now let's attach our magnetic clasp to the back. And then once I've got this done, I will show you the magnetic clasp is going to want to hang on and attach itself to this. I need to make sure this gets closed all the way. That was not quite right. There we go. Let's do the other one. So yeah, I'll show you the alternate way of doing that. Like using seed beads to bead the back of your work is a great way to make your jewelry design accessible for folks who have metal allergies or sensitivities for that, because it's just beads and thread until you get to a clasp, of course. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to attach the other end of my magnetic clasp to this before I closed it. Let's do that now. All right. So now I have myself a necklace using daggers and seed beads from the October Beads to Live By Curated Collection. Let me show you an alternative way to finish this besides using the chain. And that is by doing this pattern here with the beads. It's basically these diamonds. We already learned how to do those, but then between the diamonds, there's going to be just a 4 bead right angle weave unit. So let me show you here what that means. Let me get these beads out. There we go. So after you finish your diamond shape, you're going to want to pick up one of your A beads, one of your B beads, because the B bead is what we used for the diamond shape, and an A bead. And then sew back through this bead on the side, the one that you ended with. That gives you a little divider. Visually between this diamond and the next one. So right here, I'm ready to begin another diamond. And just like the other, I do that by picking up 7 of my B beads. Make sure I counted right. And sewing through the bead I was coming out of. And I'm going to do the same thing where I sew into the next one and then skip one, and sew into the next 3 and skip one. Sew into the next one and skip one. Sew into the next 3 and skip one, and then sew into the next 2. And maybe help this guy out if he is on the wrong side of that thread. That makes my little diamond shape. And then I can continue on. I can move my thread over here to the end and do the same thing with that 4 bead right angle weave unit. So all you're doing is just adding 1, 2, 3 beads to that because you've already got this one. And you keep doing that until you get to the right length that you want. And then you can attach a wire guardian to the end and your closure. So I'm just going to set that one aside. Well, actually, let's zoom out a little bit so you can get a better idea of what that looks like and compare it with this. Go check out Beads to Live By if you want to get some sets of seed beads and 2-hole beads that are totally matched. They have add-on bundles that you can purchase with check glass that go with that. It's been a really, really great way for me to build up my seed bead stash. It's a great way for me to play with beads that I might not normally have thought to buy, and for me to kind of expand some of my color palettes within this. Anyway, thank you for hanging. Bye.